Hey gang, I'm Luke and welcome to Down from the Attic, Modern Classics, where I look at newer board games that you might not have heard of, but are well worth checking out. And in this episode, we're looking at Tokyo Highway from Itten Games. Let's get this thing down and have a look at it.
First off, box art, and, well, this is very minimalist, isn't it? Grey box, big white lettering, and some coloured cars at the bottom. Yeah, I kind of think it's genius. Think about it. In a sea of games with fantasy art and elaborately painted box fronts, something as bland as this? Well, it certainly stands out by contrast. Contents, and honestly, this looks like a building block set. And oh, by the way, this box is heavy. So, what do we have here? 4 buildings of different shapes, a bunch of grey cylinders, a selection of yellow cylinders, car pieces, a ton of grey lolly sticks for the bridges, a pair of tweezers, and the instructions. Setup, and depending on how many people are playing, depends on the number of pieces each player is allocated. This handy chart in the instructions tells you how many cars, grey cylinders, yellow cylinders, and bridge pieces each player gets. With an equal amount distributed between the players, we're ready to play. The aim of the game is very simple. Turn by turn, place a new bridge and be the first person to place all your cars on your bridges that cross over or under existing bridges. Sounds simple enough, right? Every player starts with an on-ramp to the highway. This is one grey peg with one of your grey lolly stick roads going up. These should be one road length away from another player. Next, players can choose to place their buildings within the play area. And let's be honest here, you're going to aim to make things as tricky as possible for the other players. The buildings are optional to play with. You can choose to omit them from games, but they definitely add another obstacle to build around. The person to last drive on a highway goes first. Each turn, a player has to place a new section of road, either elevating or descending. A road piece may never be placed completely horizontally. So with the on-ramp already being built, you're going to be building upwards on your first turn, using 2 of the discs and then placing your new stretch of road. Getting to grips with just how far apart to space your builds does take some getting used to, and it's wise to use another road piece as a yardstick of sorts. And that's all well and good, but how do we start landing our cars onto the roads? The trick here is to build roads over or under existing roads. This doesn't count if your bridge goes over an intersection, it has to pass clean over the road. Do this and you can add a car to your road. And if your road passes more than one road, you can add multiple cars. However, your opponents are trying to do the exact same thing, and they're going to be building in a fashion that obstructs your chances of getting roads and cars out. There's going to be times where you'll need to think very carefully about where you place your next move. Roads are all the same length, and everyone is vying for those spots that allows them to build in ways that cross over multiple bridges. As mentioned, you can choose to build either going up or down during the play. You might think that building up is the smart way to go because, well, you're elevated above your opponents. You'd think that, but in actuality, you're just making it easier for opponents to build under you. And each player has a set number of pieces. If you run out, that's on you. You can only build up to 5 stories anyway. That's 5 of your grey cylinder pieces per move. And at that height, things begin to get very wobbly very quickly. At any point, a player can choose to use one of their yellow discs. These are junctions and allow you to build off in 2 or more branching directions. Normally, one route is allowed on top of the grey discs. Having the option to split off and plan multiple routes is another tactic to utilise in the game, both to give you more chances to place bridges and cars, and more opportunities to block opponents' plays. There's been plenty of times where a player has landed their road in a position that thwarts another player's obvious building plans. Players may also build with the sole intent of trying to make the thing a lot more precarious. Players may also build an off-ramp. a road that touches the table, but be warned, if you've not used a yellow disc in your road, and that's your only road, you're out of the game. You can't build any further. And players will absolutely try to force you to do that. Yellow discs also give the opponents a target to focus on too, as, well, more roads from one point means a higher chance of having roads pass over multiple roads. Knowing when and where to place these can really swing the game. After everyone's had a few turns, the city and the highway really comes to life with this game, and it has a truly gorgeous look to it. The table presence of this game is what drew me to it in the first place. I remember seeing this at Games Expo 2019 and I was absolutely fascinated with it. With the colourful little cars standing out against a tangle of grey components, at a glance it's very quick to determine who's winning. But this isn't just a strategy game about clever placement. This is a dexterity game too. Placing some of your roads and paths requires you to get very creative and have a steady hand. Threading a road through existing roads is tricky but rewarding, and thankfully the game comes with tweezers to make your plays a little easier to drop into place. But there'll be times where a bump or a knock will cause the highway to fall. Generally speaking, these aren't as spectacular as, say, a game of Jenga or a Rhino Hero or Tilt and Tumble. And the important thing too is that someone knocking down part of the highway doesn't automatically exclude them from the game. That's not to say that citywide destruction doesn't come with a cost. Whatever a player has knocked over of another player's, they have to give them out of their stock of buildable parts. So if you've knocked over a bridge with 2 grey pieces, you've got to give a bridge and 2 grey pieces to that opponent. So this gives you less to play with and your opponents more options to win with. The player also has to reconstruct the city how it was. This, I feel, slows the game down somewhat, and it's definitely something that could be house ruled. Be the first person to place all your cars and you win. So, final thoughts?
Tokyo Highway is the marriage of a strategy game and a dexterity game, and for the most part, I really like this concept and I think it works quite well. The pieces are big enough not to be too fiddly when building, but small enough to present a challenge. And speaking of building, your strategy is going to change turn by turn based on what your opponents do. They might spot a move that you'd already spotted and totally mess up your plans, so you have to build elsewhere. And it goes to say that no two cities are ever going to be quite the same with this game, and there's something quite wonderful about that. Games will last around about 20 to 30 minutes depending on how many people are playing, and new players tend to wait around for that spectacle of the whole city being knocked down by a clumsy hand, and I'm sorry, that's just not coming. It's not that sort of game. Those people are looking at this game thinking that it's going to be like Jenga or Rhino Hero or Tilt and Tumble. It's just not that kind of game. This is not that game's showpiece. The fun from this game comes from outthinking your opponent, spotting a move what they couldn't see, or taking a risky strategy and threading a road between different roads that are already there. This is the fun with this game. This is the 4-player version of this game. There is a 2-player version which is a bit more compact, and it doesn't come with the wooden buildings, so those of you looking for a smaller, more compact experience might want to check that one out. But yeah, Tokyo Highway is definitely worth looking at. Well, as always, I'm Luke. Thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.
If you like what I'm doing here on Down from the Attic, please consider liking the episode and subscribing. Comments are always welcome, and I'll see you in the next video.